Comparison doesn't ruin children overnight. It rewires them slowly. It links to self-worth to possessions. It links belonging to brands. And it trains them to spend in order to feel enough. Most parents miss this because it looks really harmless at the beginning. Today, I'll break down a 4 point framework to help you protect your child's financial identity, especially in more affluent environments, like the environment I'm in, which is Singapore. I've seen this pattern repeatedly, not one dramatic incident, but in small comments. A child comes back from a birthday party and the child says, "The presents weren't as good," or probably casually mentioning, "My friend's house has a swimming pool in it and an elevator." Sometimes they don't complain, they just go quiet. This is especially common in more affluent environments, high exposure, high comparison. And you might think, well, that's pretty normal. I do it too. So do you. It is. But how we respond shapes our children's financial identity. I call this the 4 stages of comparison drift. Stage 1, belonging gap. Stage 2, identity insecurity. Stage 3, compensatory consumption. And finally, stage 4, financial stress identity. If stage 1 isn't guided properly, stage 4 becomes very real later on. Let's start with the first one. Here's something simple you can try. When your child compares, don't shut it down. Don't dismiss it. Instead, you can ask, do you feel left out? Or do you just want the same thing? That question really matters. And why does it matter? Because belonging and ownership are not the same. A child who feels left out needs the connection and the connection with the friends that they have. And a child who simply wants something needs the boundaries to help that person stay within it. If you don't separate the two, they grow up thinking, buying equals belonging. And that is actually quite dangerous. They might actually want to buy so that they can belong to a certain group. So, stage 1, the belonging gap. This is where children compare to figure out where they stand. It is about the social positioning and is quite similar to what us as adults actually do. If their friend gives out something elaborate during the birthday packs, which I have been a part of as well when my children were quite young, and yours happen to be simpler, the children compare, they do take notes, they do actually talk about it. Or another example, if your friend lives in a landed house, and in Singapore setting, landed is probably their own big space where the house is all on their own, as compared to what many of us do live in, which is like flatted buildings with separate units within those high buildings, then that actually makes a difference. And if you don't actually stay in those, you might actually feel left out. And the children do notice it. My own children have made those comments before. At the beginning, I would just shut them down. And when I shut them down, they don't want to share after a while. But I did something different. I say, we are different. We acknowledge that difference, but we are not lesser than them. And you might actually think that maybe this kind of exposure could inspire them, could it motivate them to actually work harder, to work smarter in the future. It probably can, but only if the comparison doesn't turn into a deficiency about themselves, about how well they think about themselves. So here's some practical steps. When the comparison comes up, reframe this difference as diversity. It is not actually a hierarchy. And because sometimes people do make living choices based on where they stay, not because of the amount of money that they have, but it's probably because of certain personal choices that they make. Point number 2, I call this as identity insecurity. This is where it becomes quite subtle. If belonging keeps getting linked to the possessions that they have, the children will start linking their personal self-worth to possessions. They probably won't say it that way, but you see it. Maybe they feel embarrassed about having a simpler birthday party. Maybe they hesitate when talking about where they live. Children are quite honest. They don't mean harm. but repeated comparison can chip away at their own self-esteem. You might actually think, should I just upgrade? Should you give in to lifestyle inflation so they don't feel bad about how they are feeling? Now, be very careful. If status keeps outranking values in your home, you are actually reinforcing and teaching the hierarchy. But here's a better hierarchy. Needs always comes first. Next, you fulfill your wants when your needs are fulfilled. Finally, if you happen to have something left over, then why not fulfill your status needs and say it quite calmly. Repeat it often and let that be the family structure. Point three, stage three, compensatory consumption. If the insecurity isn't corrected earlier, it doesn't disappear. It just grows up and it could grow up into something pretty big in the future when the child becomes a young adult that is at a much later stage. They don't increase capacity, they just increase the appearance, this falsehood about them being something that they probably aren't. They try to buy to keep up. And you've heard the saying before, keeping up with the Jonases. And that is where this whole thing actually starts because they try to spend to feel equal. Not in adulthood, but it all begins in childhood. You might think, wow, this is a bit too far ahead to worry about. Why do I have to do this now? It actually isn't. Financial identity does form pretty early. So model something really powerful as yourself as parents. Be visibly contented. Say things that actually say that you're pretty contented. Display gratitude. Don't force that gratitude and be calm and confident about it. Say things like, and this is what we do at home, we are blessed and we are truly blessed. We choose wisely. That tone actually does matter. So now we can see it pretty clearly. Comparison isn't about the kind of house that you stay in. It isn't exactly about the party pack that you give or what exactly it is that you're delivering to your friends. It's about whether your child actually links the identity to the possessions. And if you break that link early on, you will protect your children's future decisions. So this is where it ends up. Stage four, financial stress identity. Adults who spend to keep up often live with quiet, chronic financial stress, not because they earn too little, but because their identity is tied to the appearance that they have. They feel pressure to maintain a certain lifestyle, to match their peers, to probably signal the success that they want others to think that they actually have. Even when it stretches them a bit too hard, too far, and it's just like a rubber band, once you stretch it too hard, it might possibly snap. The root is rarely income. It is actually about identity. If a child grows up believing having equals belonging or upgrading equals worth, that belief doesn't disappear at 25. It actually magnifies. It actually gets very, very expensive. You might think, but my child is young. And that is exactly why. That is why at this stage it is still preventable. That is why at this stage the mindset, it is still very moldable. This practical step here is very subtle, yet it is the most important part of shaping your child's future, directing, guiding your child's future. So when your child compares, don't just talk about gratitude, talk about choice. What then you can say, we don't buy everything we can afford. You can actually say, we buy what aligns with our values. One example of my value is I really like eating. I really love eating at the hawker center because that's where I get the most value for my money. And that is what I personally enjoy. And that sentence actually builds identity, not just discipline. Here's what you can do next week. Step one, when comparison happens, ask what emotion is underneath. Question that. You might even want to ask probing questions to your own children. Number two, separate the belonging from the buying. The buying is just an act in itself. It doesn't identify, it doesn't cause you to feel belong to a particular group. Step number three, reinforce the important family hierarchy that I mentioned earlier. Number one, needs, followed by wants. And finally, if you can afford it, status. Don't suppress it, don't indulge it. Because the goal isn't to make your child money minded. That's the furthest thing you want to do. It is to help them be the master of money. So if you want to go one level deeper, the next step is to teach your child how to structure wants versus needs properly. And that's the framework that prevents comparison from turning into impulsive spending. Watch that next. If you find this video helpful so far, do me a very small favor. Like the video, and this helps out with the YouTube algorithm to help us to push this kind of message out to as many parents who might need the very same message that you're currently listening to today. And if you want structured frameworks, not just noise, you might want to consider subscribing to this particular channel. And whenever a new video comes out, you'll be one of the first few to know.